Hello, good evening. Yeah. So it's so exciting. Good evening. I just noticed that we've got folks joining us tonight from all over Georgia and someone from Australia. Hey, so that's kind of fun and different. But we're just excited to be here tonight and excited to hear from all of you and our fabulous presenters. So I think we're probably ready to go ahead and get started. So let's kick this off. I'm Stephanie Moss from Parent to Parent of Georgia, and I want to welcome everyone tonight as we get ready to spend some time together talking about supporting early language development and some tips for families that you guys can do at home. I told you just a little bit about Parent to Parent. We are Georgia's Parent Training and Information Center, so we provide information and referrals and training and educational support for families of infants, toddlers, preschoolers, and youth, birth to 26 years of age, all over the state of Georgia. And I'm excited to partner with, that we've been able to partner with IDA Georgia, International Dyslexia Association, Georgia branch. And if you're not familiar with IDA Georgia, they are focused on increasing public awareness about dyslexia and promoting effective teaching approaches and interventions for struggling readers. So we've been working together this late summer or into the fall, and this is our third in a series of 4 webinars that we hope, and we have our 4th one later this week. So we hope you'll check those out. The recordings, the webinars are all recorded, so there'll be a recording of this one posted on the website soon. And we would like to ask you to put your questions in the Q&A section of the on your toolbar across the bottom of your screen, and we're going to save the questions for the end so we can get through some of the content. So I'm going to turn it over to Stacey Levy.
So hello, everybody. My name is Stacey Levy, and I am currently president of IDA Georgia, and I am also a speech and language pathologist by profession. I am very passionate about being a speech and language pathologist working specifically with dyslexia, as I have come to understand that many times we as speech and language pathologists are the first sets of eyes on children who have language-based learning disabilities such as dyslexia. Peri and I both work together. I own a private practice here in Georgia, and Peri is the director of that practice. And we are both very excited to be here tonight to talk about strategies for early language development. I'm going to turn it over to Peri now, and Peri is going to go through some slides that we presented, and we are both going to be available at the end to answer questions. But I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Peri.
Great. Hi, I am Peri Kaplan. I'm also a speech language pathologist, which I've been doing for over 20 years here in the Atlanta area, both in the public school system for the first 12 years of my career, and then as clinic director and with Stacey at Stacey Levy and Associates, as well as an active therapist. I still do therapy and evaluations, as well as the back end running of the practice. So what we're going to talk about tonight is strategies that you can use at home to help your children that have language difficulties, both the receptive language difficulties, the language processing, as well as expressive language difficulties. A lot of the things that I'm going to go over tonight are things that you are already doing, very likely, but they are things that can be helpful really for our kids with language difficulties and just any child that is developing language. These strategies are things that you can do in your daily life. And then the second half of the slides are actual games and recommendations, things that you can do with them. So I will share my screen and go through our slides. Oops, give me 1 second. It's not the beginning. Just go back. Okay. Sorry. Okay, here we go. Okay. Everybody see the screen? Okay. Excellent. So these are parent language strategies, as we said. The first one here is about following directions and listening strategies. So one thing that we tend to do as parents is We give our kids a lot of language at once. When we are giving our children directions, we may say something like, go upstairs, look in the bathroom. Go upstairs, look in the bottom drawer, maybe the middle drawer. I can't remember. Get your blue bathing suit, the one you wore to the beach last week with the sharks on it, the one from grandma. She'll be so happy to see you wearing it again. Also, grab your orange towel, the pool towel, not the one you shower with. I think it's folded on the dryer. Then fill up your water bottle. I'm not buying drinks at the pool. Don't forget all of these things, right? So that was like 89, 90 words there, at least, that I said to my child as we're trying to get out the door. What a more effective way is to get rid of 60% of that language. When you really need your child to follow directions, keeping it simple and the less words is the better. Say something instead like, we're going to the pool. This is what you need. Ready? And then pause. Blue bathing suit, towel, water bottle. I'm going to say it one more time. Blue bathing suit, orange towel, water bottle. Go. That way, I'm taking the vast amount of language out. Then they know exactly what to listen for. We tend to overload our kids with language and they tune us out, surprisingly. Going right along with that is really, really teaching our kids to visualize. So when we get instructions, for example, if I was going to give you instructions on how to get to my house from Stacey's house, where I am right now, I would tell you, okay, pull out of the driveway. You're going to make a left, go down to the stop sign, make a left. When you see the Walgreens at the traffic light there, you'll see a Walgreens and make a right-hand turn. As I'm saying that to you, you are visualizing either yourself in the car, sort of driving, and you visualize, okay, stop sign. Okay, now I see myself turning left. I see the Walgreens. You're visualizing as you go. You're picturing it in your mind. Children that have language difficulties don't take what they hear and turn it into pictures in their mind automatically. Sometimes they do, but it's often not clear for them to be able to hold on to the information. So teaching our kids how to visualize is very, very important. So for that same instruction about going to the pool, I want my kid to have the things that they need. So I would say something like, we're going to the pool. This is what you need. Ready? Your blue bathing suit. Okay, close your eyes. Picture it. Remember, you have your blue bathing suit, the one with the sharks. Can you see it in your mind? And they're going, yeah, okay, I can see it. Blue bathing suit. Next, orange towel. Think about your orange towel, your favorite one, okay? So picture in your mind your blue bathing suit, your orange towel. And one more thing, next to it, picture your water bottle. Okay, so let's go through them all again. Make sure you have your picture. Blue bathing suit, orange towel, water bottle. I may also then have them repeat it back to me. Tell me what I need. I could also pair gestures with it. Bathing suit, towel, water bottle. Okay, do it with me. Bathing suit, towel, water bottle. And have them do it. By putting the pictures and the words together, it's going to allow your child to hold that information more easily and then execute the directions. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to do it exactly right. They may, like my kids, go upstairs to get the bathing suit, and then I go up and find them on their iPad, on their bed, or whatever it is. But at least by going through these steps, I know that they are going to understand and they are taking in and able to hold on to and visualize the instructions that I'm giving them. This is also a great thing to practice with kids. Your child might not be able to do all three things at once. You may have to have them go do one thing and come back for the second instruction. And then as they get better at it, you can add things on. But keeping it simple, the less words, the better, and having them visualize are going to be very, very helpful in having your kids be better at following directions. The one other thing that I wanted to say, and you can see the way it's worded here, I front load directions for kids. We love for our kids to be first time listeners. I'm going to say this one time and I want you to do it. But a lot of kids, they just need to hear it twice for it to sink in. So if we think about it in that way, I'm going to say it twice before you go do it. And letting them hear it twice is also really going to help it stick in their mind and help them be able to execute the directions. This is another strategy. Take it slow. We talk very quickly. It's human nature. It's 2025. We all have a lot going on, and it is our nature to talk quickly. Our kids feel that pressure, especially our kids with language disorders. Many of them have word retrieval difficulties. It's in there, but they can't necessarily get it out. And we'll talk more about those in just a minute. But just by slowing down the rate that you are talking, as I'm slowing down now, you can probably tell, you're setting the pace for the conversation so that your child doesn't feel rushed. Sometimes kids even need to hear from us, I'm going to listen as long as it takes for you to get it out or for you to tell me what you want to tell me. I'm going to listen. I'm not going anywhere. This is really hard. I'm a mom of 3 now teenagers, but even as teenagers, they all want to be talking. They all want my attention. They all compete. And with younger kids that have language difficulties, they really feel that pressure to get the word in edgewise. And by taking down the pace of the conversation, it allows them to feel less rushed and less pressure. This is another expressive language strategy, choices. So very often when we are talking to our kids, they will say, I don't know, or they can't think of what it is that they want. This goes back to that word retrieval piece that I mentioned before of kids that have language difficulties often have the language in there, but they cannot quickly and accurately retrieve the word that they want. As adults, our word retrieval also declines. Being in my late 40s here, every day there is something that I'm trying to think of and I either can't think of the word for it, I can't think of that person's name, I have trouble being able to retrieve something that I know is in my mind, but I can't pull it out. And sometimes the pressure of an open-ended question puts kids with word retrieval difficulties into that deer in headlights look and they just shut it down. Even something as simple as what do you want for breakfast could shut down my middle daughter who is now 16, but she has dyslexia, she has developmental language disorder. There was nothing worse for her in the morning than me asking her what she wanted for breakfast. That could set the whole tone of the day. If she just didn't know what she wanted, or she knew what she wanted, but she couldn't think of it, saying, what do you want for breakfast could just start our day off on the wrong foot. I got really good at giving her choices. Instead of what do you want for breakfast, it became this morning, do you want waffles, cereal, or eggs? And then she had her choices and she could easily say eggs or whatever it is. Giving choices is a very powerful way to take the pressure off kids with word retrieval difficulties and also giving them some less to choose from. That idea of what do you want for breakfast, it could be anything in the house, right? But if I give a smaller finite set of choices, it's easier to make a decision. That decision making process for kids with language disorders or ADHD, that needing to make decisions can be very overwhelming. For breakfast, actually, in my house, we started that my kids had to put their breakfast order in the night before. That really took the pressure off our mornings. This doesn't only work for breakfast, obviously. Anything that you're doing with your kids, if you give them choices, we tell teachers this all the time. If you're in, for example, in math class, if you're doing geometry, instead of saying, Stephanie, what shape is this? And her going, it's a something gone, right? But not being able to think of it. Instead, if I say, Stephanie, is this a hexagon or an octagon? And she can go, oh, that's an octagon. She not only is able to circumvent the word retrieval, but then she feels success in front of her peers, that she's able to answer it. Whereas if it had been an open-ended question, she may not have been able to think of the answer. So offering choices is very powerful. Using context and repetition. So vocabulary is the basis of all language. We have to know what individual words mean so that we can then understand what phrases and sentences mean and larger pieces of information that we have to take in. So vocabulary is very, very, very important. We often think that our kids know what words mean or what they are, but they don't. They often don't have an exact precise knowledge of what a word means. When we teach vocabulary, the research shows that we have to hear each word many, many times before we take that word and we put it into our long-term memory. And we also have to really be able to use that word effectively for it to become solidified in our lexicon. So when your child learns a new word, repeat that word throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. I often tell parents, keep a whiteboard on your fridge. As your child learns new words, add them. Or some kids, they have like little dictionaries that as they learn new words, you can put them in. So for example, the word examine. If your kids very often will say, what does that mean? They'll hear a word that they don't know and they'll say, Mommy, what does that mean? What does this word mean? So I use the word examine here. So the word examine means to look at something closely. So you may have your child may have heard it the first time in the word in examine. Maybe it's a vocabulary word from school or something. And so you may say, oh, look, let's examine this flower. Let's get out our magnifying glass and let's examine this flower on the tree. Let's look at it together. We're going to look at it very closely. We're going to examine it. And then later in the week, maybe your child has a doctor's appointment. And you knowing that you want to keep using the word examine, and the child said, oh, why am I going to the doctor? Well, the doctor's going to examine you. They're going to check out your body. Remember that word that we learned? We examined the flower, and now the doctor's going to examine you. So bringing up the same word in context over and over and over is going to help them store the word more easily, and then having them use the word at the same time. So you may say something like, we examined the flower and the doctor examined you. Tell me what you want to examine. Let's have you put it in a sentence, and then have your child say, oh, I want to examine the caterpillar, and encourage them to also use the word themselves. That's going to help that word stick. This concept of pre-teaching background information with visuals is very powerful for kids with language difficulties and all kids, really. We are in here, we are in 2025, and we have so much technology at our fingertips. I use Google Images many times a day in many therapy sessions with kids. I love the fact that if a child doesn't know what something means, I can just pull up a picture of it and show it to them. No more, going to the encyclopedias on the shelf and having to look things up, right? It's all at our fingertips. But really pre-teaching content to kids before they start to learn something can be very powerful. Uh, Going into especially new units at school, new lessons, giving your kids some background beforehand is very powerful. So here, I had a student, they were going to be learning about the Titanic in social studies. And before they started the unit, we went on and looked at pictures. We looked at pictures of the Titanic, the ship. We talked about what it looked like, why it was such a big deal. We looked at some of the people that were on the ship and what kind of clothes they wore during that time period. We talked about the fact that a lot of the people up on the ship were going to be very fancy and they wore fancy hats and fancy clothes. We looked at pictures of icebergs, to really give them visuals so that when the teacher then went and started talking about all these things in the class, and they did a much deeper dive than we did into the story of the Titanic, what happened, the child already had preloaded images in their mind so that when the teacher started talking about it, they could take those visuals that we had seen and plug it into what the teacher was talking about. That gives them a good sense of what things look like so that they can form those visual images when they hear. Like we talked about in the beginning, children with language difficulties often don't form visuals easily. So by giving them the visuals, they're able to then attach the language that they hear to these visuals, and it helps the language stick. Another strategy is ask a question to be answered later. So our kids with language difficulties, again, often have trouble with single word retrieval as well as just that thought organization of how do I take what's in my mind and formulate it. Sometimes just giving them time to think about it beforehand can be very powerful. So something like your child comes home from a field trip, and instead of saying as they walk in the door, as they get in the car, "Oh, tell me about your field trip." Then they go, "It was fine. What'd you do?" Nothing, right? How many of us have heard that? What'd you do at school today? Nothing. But asking them a question and then telling them that they will have some time and then they'll answer it. So for example, "I can't wait to hear about your field trip to the zoo. I'm going to walk the dog. And when I get back, I want to hear about your 3 favorite animals." So I'm giving them a very specific question to answer, not just "What did you do at the zoo?" I'm being specific. "Tell me about your 3 favorite animals or 3 animals you saw." Right? So I'm giving them like a specific task to answer, not just this big open-ended question. And I'm also giving them time to think about it. This is a strategy that we often give teachers in the classroom also, where we may say, if Johnny has some language difficulties, the teacher may say, "Okay, we just read this story. Johnny, you are going to tell me about the setting. Ryan, you're going to tell me the characters, and so, you're going to tell me the problem in the story." Okay. Ryan, tell me the characters or whatever. So you kind of give each child a heads up about what they have to answer, and then you come back to them later. So even if it's 30 seconds later, a minute later, you're giving them time to prepare rather than putting them on the spot. You could even do it in a way where it's, the homework. So tonight you're going to read chapter 1. When we come into class tomorrow, Johnny, you're going to tell me about, 3 animals that can camouflage themselves. Okay. So and so, you're going to tell me, answer this question, etc. And then, so when they come in the next day, they have an idea about what they have to answer. So they don't get that on the spot deer in headlights feeling. This is one of my favorite ones. Teach, don't test. As adults, we ask our children questions constantly. We are testing them. What did you do to school today? What do you want for breakfast? What did you learn in math? What happened at soccer practice, right? We're constantly asking our kids questions. We're testing them because we're asking them and we're wanting an answer from them. So a better way to teach our children language is to model the language and then they will repeat it. The example or analogy I love to give with this is when you think about babies, when you have a baby, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18-month-old baby, and you're teaching them language, you walk around and you tell them what things are. You say cup, ball, blue ball, couch, chair. And what does the child do? They copy what we say. They say cup, ball, couch, chair, right? If I walked around and just said to the baby, what's that? What's that? What's that? The baby's going to call everything, what's that? Because they are going to copy what I say. That's testing them, not teaching them. So for babies, we tell them what things are and they copy us. We have to have the same mentality for our young children and school-aged children. We need to model the language that we want to hear from them, and then they will copy it, especially if we use the same language over and over. So for example, instead of saying at the dinner table, what did you do today? You say something like, I'm going to tell you what I did today, and then you can tell me. First, I drove through Starbucks and got an iced coffee. Then I had a doctor's appointment for my ankle. After that, I dropped the dog at the groomer. Last, I went to Publix to get ingredients for lasagna. First, next, after that, last. Now you can tell me about your day, and then they can go through the same process. You can help them in the beginning. But if you do this same process every night at dinner and you model it first, then they're going to get in the habit of being able to do the same thing. And maybe it's not as long. Maybe you only have 2 steps at first. First, I went to Starbucks. Then I had a doctor's appointment. Maybe you only, with young children, start with 2 things, and then 3, and then 4. But by modeling what you want them to say, they will copy it. That's teach it, don't test it. We can use this same idea with everything that we do with our kids language-wise. We say it first and we want them to copy what we do rather than just asking them questions. Expanding and adding. This is another strategy that we use with kids when we want to teach them to expand what they're saying it. So, for example, if a child says, if you say, tell me about the animal that you saw at the zoo, and they say, I saw a bear. And then you might say, oh, was it black or brown? And they'll say brown. And you say, oh, you saw a brown bear. Where was it? In a tree. You saw a brown bear in a tree. So we're taking what they're saying and adding on to it, expanding it. Okay, these are now some actual games that you can purchase or just do with your children. Some of these are just things that you can do. Others are actual games that you can purchase. Um, Games like I Spy. I Spy builds vocabulary skills, descriptive language, listening. For example, um, you see something in the room and you're going to describe it for them and they have to guess what it is, right? I spy something pink, it grows outside, and it has green leaves. I like to give my kids parameters, like you can't guess until I've given you 3 clues. I also like to tell them that the faster I guess theirs, the more points they get. Because sometimes kids like to be evasive, but really, if we're working on the more accurate descriptions, we want them to give us more upfront. The game Guess Who is a game that you can purchase. It's if you haven't seen it, it's where each person has a set of people in front of them, and these little um, pictures that get flipped down as you go. I have a person, and you have to guess who mine is, and I have to guess who yours is by asking questions. You would say things like, is your person wearing glasses? And they say yes or no. And then you put down, if they say yes, you put down all the people wearing glasses. Is your person have blue eyes? And then they say no, you put down the people that have blue eyes, etc. It's a really fun turn-taking language game. Zingo is a picture-based bingo game that you can buy. There's a lot of different versions. There's some that just have words for early literacy. A lot have pictures on them. You can work on a lot of different language skills through Zingo. Doing matching or memory games. You can do this with decks of cards. You can do this with, there's a lot of different versions also. Um, Simon Says builds listening skills, following direction skills. Simon Says, put your hands on your head. Simon Says, touch your nose, touch your feet, and if you don't say Simon Says, then they're out. So they have to listen, pay attention. You could do it with 2 steps, 3 steps. There's a lot of ways to make it more complicated. Early elementary, some other games that you can purchase are Apples to Apples. There's a older version and a junior version. This is great for associations and reasoning. Guess 10 is like a yes, no questions. It's kind of like 20 questions. But there's different decks that have vocabulary, different categories of vocabulary. Taboo Junior is a really fun game. They have to give clues about objects, but certain words are off limits, so you can't use those certain words. You have to describe, but usually the most common things related to it are off limits, so you have to use other words and get creative. Charades is building language skills through acting, using gestures, facial expressions. It's great for working on nonverbal language. Headbands is also a guessing game where you have an object, it's on your head, you can't see it, and either the other person has to describe it to you and you guess it, or you ask questions. There's lots of different ways that you can play a lot of these games. Some of them have instructions with them, but then you can always Google, how else can I play headbands? And it will give you other ways to play. For older kids, some other games, Categories is a great game for word retrieval, coming up with different words in different categories using the first letter of a word as the parameter. An easier way to do it. Sometimes coming up just using the first letter is really hard for kids, but you could do it where that letter just has to be anywhere in the word. It doesn't have to start the word. That can be, a way to modify it to make it a little easier. Code Names is another another game that works on inferencing, associations, abstract thinking. Story cubes is where you can come up with stories together. There's different cubes, one for character, setting, problem, and you come make stories together. Pictionary Junior is where you have to, it combines drawing. They have one person draws it out, whatever the word is, and the other person has to figure it out. There are, like I said before, like a lot of games that can be adapted to work on language skills using things like even if you play games like we do in therapy a lot, playing Uno or Sorry or Trouble, any of these Connect Four, in between turns, working on language skills, things like naming items and categories, talking about how two items are similar or they're different. Describing synonyms, antonyms, rhyming, like any different skill that your child may be working on at school that week or that month, whatever the skill is, you can practice those skills, but make it fun by doing it during between turns in games. Alexa is another great tool. So Alexa, now you can ask Alexa to play games with you, and there are lots and lots. Here are just a few on this slide and the next slide. Storytelling and vocabulary games. You can say, Alexa, let's play Story Builder. And she prompts kids to create stories. Alexa can do Mad Libs with your kids. Would you rather for kids? And all you have to do is say, Alexa, let's play, and then name one of these games. There are a lot of guessing games where, she has to guess or by you giving clues, or she gives clues and you have to guess. Alexa actually has like an infinite number of games where you can be very specific and say, Alexa, let's play a vocabulary game, or let's play a synonym game, let's play a rhyming game. And she comes up with all different options. She'll do Simon Says, categories. Akinator is a really fun game. It's like 20 questions, but it's on specific people. So you can think of a character, and she has 20 questions to figure out the person that you're thinking of. And it's actually really crazy. You can think of, it could be a character like Spider-Man or Pippi Longstocking, or it could be a real person in history like, um, you know, George Washington, or a, a sports person. The fact that she can get these right always amazes me, because my kids will think of the most random things, but she asks questions and then you have to yes, no answer, and she can almost always figure out the person that you're talking about. There's other educational language skills that Alexa does, word of the day, spelling bee, animal workout, where she gives kids a workout to do, animal kind of movement related tasks that combines listening, following directions. So Alexa is a fantastic way to incorporate language skills into your day with your kids. And then finally, almost at the end here, there are two online programs that we like to highlight. One of them is called Here Builder. It's made by a speech and language company, and you can do an online subscription. We do not get paid for this. We do not get kickbacks, by the way. We have no financial connection to Here Builder. But Here Builder is it's a great program. They have 4 different modules: auditory memory, following directions, phonological awareness, and sequencing. There are 3 different levels that you can set it at for depending on your child's age and skills. And they are all, each module has 5 or 6 or up to 10 games within it that focuses on different skills. So for example, in auditory memory, there is this bad guy, Dr. Forgets It, and who's taken over the town, and there are spies in the town, and you have to crack the codes by remembering sequences of numbers, sequences of words, and other processing information to help him get rid of the bad guy in the town. There's like a memory for details. There's a bunch of different games within there. The following directions module is a toy factory. It goes through different types of directions. So there'll be sequential directions, conditional directions, all different tasks. Phonological awareness goes through a lot of these pre-literacy skills like rhyming, syllable and word segmenting, blending, phoneme manipulation, and then sequencing finally takes them through tasks related to putting stories in order. And it's a great resource. The kids usually really like it, and it's something that you can give your kid the iPad and feel good about what they're doing on it for 15 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. And then the last is another resource called Membean. This is a vocabulary building program. They use different ways of teaching vocabulary, and it's very intentional. It's really for upper elementary through middle school and high school kids. It's not really for the young ones, but it is all research-based vocabulary development. So finally, we are at the end here. So before we go to questions, I think Stacey wanted to mention, do you want to mention them?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go ahead too?
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna remind people to register for our next webinar with Ashley Turner. But I think Stephanie, you're gonna remind folks as well, and I think we can open it up for questions.
Great.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Thanks so much for all of that information. Great tips. And I know we're talking about language learners, but I have some older people in my life that I think some of those tips are going to work really well with as well. So thank you for sharing. That's really good. We've just got one question in the chat. I'll share that first, and then remind our participants that you can drop those questions in there right now because we're ready to take them live. But the one we've got right now was a question asking for any recommendations for strategies to solidify math vocabulary for word problems. And the person put in parentheses a third grader with dyslexia.
Oh yeah. So one of my favorite, I'll take the,
Yeah.
one of my favorite strategies is to just simply take two different colors of highlighter and literally just break it up that way. So if the first sentence says Bill has 5 apples. Now, obviously this is not a third grade problem, but just to help you understand what I'm saying, Bill has 5 apples. I would put that in yellow highlighter. He gives 3 to Jane, put that in pink highlighter, and then go back. So that way they stop and they see each one at a time. And I like to take each sentence, if possible, and draw it so they get that visual. Typically, kids with the language of math, it's breaking it down into steps and then bringing in the visualization is usually my go-to strategy. And sometimes also doing, like Peri was talking about earlier, doing that vocabulary check. So for example, if they say, what is the sum? And they don't know what the sum means, you might need to take a step back and reteach the vocabulary itself.
Thank you. We don't have, we got a heart emoji. So we got some positive vibes for that, positive reactions to that response. Thank you, Stacey. We do not have any other questions in the chat right now.
I think that's a good job. Nobody.
No, everybody knows exactly what to do.
So I will remind everyone that we did, again, because we had a question during your content. This is recorded and it will be posted on Parent to Parents website as well as IDA Georgia's YouTube channel pretty quickly. The first 2 we did, they were ready within a day or two. They were up really quick. And then, like I said, our fourth webinar is Thursday night. I believe that one starts at 7. And the registration information is on IDA Georgia's website, as well as probably parent to parents social media. And IDA Georgia put it on social as well. So, and we hope that you'll be able to join us again Thursday night for some more content and good discussion. And again, I think if there are no other questions, I think we are ready to wrap up. I want to thank Stacey and Peri for joining us tonight. This is really good, really good content and very, very helpful.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, and good night, everybody.